Welcome, everybody. I'm Sheldon, and I work with dogs in Central Oregon, the United States. I'm relatively new to this practice, and I've been doing a lot of studying, doing volunteer work, and working with my personal dogs. We'll talk about the dogs later, and I'm really excited to have Pete on board for the podcast. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you. As Sheldon said, I'm Pete. I'm based in Melbourne in Australia, so we're in totally different time zones. I have, much like Sheldon, I'm quite new to this. I have a 9-to-5 job, which I still am in full time, and I work with dogs as my hobby / second job / that's my business owner, the stuff that I do. And we'll see where we can take it. But I've been doing this for approximately 3 years now. But if you wanted to condense that into a true full-time venture, I would still be considered quite new at this, definitely. But yeah, 3 years of working with dogs, use my own in that. But yeah, still what you might call inexperienced up to a point.
Nice. And I have I've only been doing this full time since August, and I was planning to launch my dog training business right around this time, but I got roped into another startup. So I'm not doing the dog training startup's been postponed, and the dog training, right? We'll get to that. But I'm now doing more technical work and at an executive level. So I'm a CTO at a startup doing some stuff. And I get to do that part-time, which is why I took the gig, and I'm working with Macho and Tama, and then also a friend's dog that's a young German Shepherd. And really focusing on working with them right now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So CTO, Chief Technical Officer, is that correct?
That's right. Okay.
I suppose I should reveal my background. So I am a chartered aerospace engineer with a particular specialism in lifing of gas turbine engines and critical components in gas turbine engines. That's my background, which is, I don't know if you can see from here, but the certificates on my wall aren't very dog-shaped. They've got wings and stuff. So much like yourself, Sheldon, it was a career change opportunity that came my way, and that's what I've started doing, but I've retained my position in a business which I've been working for a long time, despite going through some troubling times and having some opportunity about 2 years ago to almost go full-time with the dog stuff. But that's an aside we won't get into. But yeah, we went through a difficult time a couple of years ago as a business, and that enabled me to go pretty much full-time with dogs. And much like yourself, I'm back in the full-time role and do dog stuff as my secondary thing at the moment. I have some long-term clients, which I don't just do training or work with behavior. In fact, I don't do training at all, but it's an expression everyone knows. I do everything. So today, for example, after this, I'll be taking someone's dog to the vet. I don't just work with behavior. I don't just take dogs out and do various things. I do everything. I look after them at my home overnight. I go to other people's houses and look after them. I walk them. I take them to the vet. Whatever needs doing. I offer a whole range of things. It's not just working with behaviors or other basic functions. I do a whole lot more than that.
It's going to be, I'm sure that we'll have a very interesting episode about the business side, especially in the context of the way that you and your colleagues, and hopefully, me joining this kind of group, doing things a bit differently than other dog trainers. So let's dive into that. At the core of the issue, I think, is this term dog training, which implies to me that we are trying to have the dog exhibit particular behaviors at a particular time,
yes,
whether it wants to or not.
Yes.
And so the training involves creating behavioral changes that accommodate the things that I want the dog to do. Some of these things might be for safety, others for convenience. It might be for sport. All of that, in my opinion, has a place. But when it comes to pet dogs, with the way I want my dogs to be and to exist with me is I want them to be out of command as much as possible. I don't want the dog. I don't want to be telling my dogs what to do all the time, and I don't want them testing, to see if they can get away with not doing what I'm asking. Like I want the dogs to be cooperative and doing the things that they want to do as much of the time as possible. And so my approach really has been trial and error, figuring out how to make that happen. And that's how I stumbled into meeting Pete and seeing this different way of doing things. So what would you describe as like the fundamental difference between dog training and your approach?
A good question, and I will try and keep this brief so we don't use up the entire hour. I have what I call a relationship-based method, which you've already accidentally almost outlined in what you've just said. I rely on building something, the dog, we'll call it a relationship, is what it is, which means the most important thing to the dog is to be doing things with you and for you. That's sometimes in line with their breed purpose, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just hanging out together or existing together or going somewhere and not doing a whole lot, just the same as you do with human friends. So much like you described, what I do with my dogs, with clients' dogs, is I get to a point where we've got a completely mutual trust and respectful relationship where communication isn't really verbal. There's not a requirement for that. When you get to the point of the dog values your company and values doing what you're doing with you more than anything else. That's where I don't do the training stuff deliberately. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with training. Once you have a relationship based on mutual trust and respect, you go on to do all sorts of other crazy things, training included. But what I focus on is first and foremost gaining the trust of the dog and having a relationship where the dog knows it actually has a voice too. It can ask to do things or go places or not do things or not go places. That is a discussion you have, not verbally. It's all body language. But ultimately it comes down to when you go somewhere which the dog is then unsure of, it's leaning on the human as the leader in the scenario who can walk forward, for example, into a scary shop. Pick one, pet shop, because they're stinky, lots of different weird smells. A dog might be scared to go in there. And instead of pressuring the dog with commands or tugging it in with a leash, I just walk in and await for the dog to follow me. You can move that to scenario to anywhere, outside, inside, whatever it might be. But once you've got a relationship and the dog trusts your judgment, if you go somewhere the dog's not particularly comfortable with, it'll follow you and it'll learn to overcome that fear. And once it started realizing that when it follows you into places that it was a little bit worried about and nothing bad happens, and actually it's quite a nice environment to be in, or it's a fun place to be, they become, first of all, braver animals. Second of all, they learn to trust your judgment because they've realized that following you somewhere overcame a fear, and actually they continued to have some fun, or they did something on the other side which was interesting to them. But they learned to put their fears aside, trust you because nothing went wrong, and they followed. But that's the foundation to it all. Whereas if I was to lean on dog training to overcome that scenario, I would be using some form of command to tell the dog to come here or to go into the shop, or if I had a leash on. I'm not saying I go everywhere without a leash on, but that's not true. I use leashes, obviously. I have leash laws here, and I have giant dogs. You'll get me in trouble very quickly if I didn't. But the natural thing to lean on if your dog is not doing something you want and you're connected by a leash is you just walk and pull the dog in. And that sets off the wrong imbalance in the relationship. That fosters mistrust and distrust because the dog is not a voluntary participant in any relationship and it's just being dragged along for the ride. So it doesn't learn to trust your judgment. It learns to learn helplessness, really. And so this is going to happen to me, whether I like it or not. And that doesn't foster anything good. And it wouldn't if you did that with a human friend either. So that's the underpinning different fundamental is trust, absolute trust. And I want the dog to follow me voluntarily. And I want the dog to learn that when I'm doing something that may or may not be of interest or scary to the dog, that actually they're perfectly capable of overcoming that. And that reward inside their internal circuitry builds them into stronger characters, builds them into more well-balanced characters that are capable of going anywhere and everywhere. Much like you see me take my dog. All right, I'll blow my own trumpet a sec. There aren't many people you could see off-leashing Tibetan Mastiffs in high-distraction, urban, suburban, and beachfront dog park environments. That's what I'm doing. And it's not just with my dogs, I do it with clients' dogs too. But that's the concept of it. And you won't hear me issue commands. The most you'll hear me say is a name. Because it's all about just being with my dog, the same as I would do with yourself if we were just walking down the beachfront on a park and you took a sudden left turn. I'd stop and be like, "What are you doing, Sheldon?" Okay, you want to go that way? Cool, let's go. And if the answer was, well, actually, Sheldon, that's rubbish. You don't want to go there. There's all the bad people are. We'll go this way. And that's all I'd say to you. And just keep walking. That body language discussion would occur.
This natural flowing moment to moment trust
Yes.
where the dog is independently deciding to cooperate with you. It's not being forced to cooperate with you. This is trust. Any dog trainer, you could get on a consult call with any dog trainer and they would tell you, trust, respect, blah, blah, blah. But the approach for establishing the trust would vary dramatically than the approach that you're taking. And I think that the best way to explain the difference is we got two nerds on this call, for those who have not realized this by now.
Yeah.
So really get into the terminology and the behavioral science.
Yeah.
So I'm still early in learning this stuff, and I've been reading some Skinner, and been studying other sources, and most importantly, and most of my time is spent paying attention to my dogs and reacting and understanding what's going on and really thinking about it moment to moment, and making the time and energy to do that. And at the core of this to me is respecting the dog's will to survive at all times. The dog, just like any other mammal, my understanding in behavioral science, all behavior is determined by the will to survive, whether that is moving towards something that the dog believes is improving its odds of survival, or moving away from something that it believes is a threat to its survival, or fighting that threat. Yes. And so this is at the core of like what I'm thinking when I observe the dog's behavior and in any given situation. And the trust to me is the dog understands that I am going to be moving it towards survival or away from threats in any direction that we go. Or honestly, like I'm the party guy, right? We go out and we have fun and we do things that they want to do together. And so they just want to go hang out and have fun. And that's cool too. But is there any specific terminology or theory that you want to use at this point to describe the difference versus, say, the extreme opposite end of the spectrum, which would be like pressure and release training, which is very popular around here, where you put the dog on a prong collar, you get on an obstacle course, or you take it to the store, to the vet or whatever, and you force the dog in as a way to make yourself the leader and establish trust. Yeah, like how would you, is there any theory or terminology you want to introduce at this point?
Yes, one addition to your spiel set, as well as survival, it's reproduction. So dogs, humans, mammals, we will move towards or away from things that are a threat to our survival or help us survive, and also towards or away from things that help us reproduce or are a threat to our reproduction. That's a little bit more subtle to specifically pinpoint what that is, but that was something Skinner explicitly said in his original writings on opera conditioning.
And let's point out that this persists. This persists even after a spay or neuter. If in the unfortunate event of a spay or neuter, like this will is still inside of the dog. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's hard coded into mammalian brains. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I would like to add. So one of the things that you see in the false dichotomy of dog training is choice. When you're on the relationship side of things, dog has a choice. It can follow you or it cannot follow you. It can do what you want to do or it cannot do what you want to do. When you go down the route, as you described, using dog training tools or even just dog training with your commands, what value is a relationship to an animal where even if it says no, that no gets overruled? What kind of relationship are you in? Well, you're in no different relationship to you or I in terms of taxes to our government.
I could say, no, I'm not paying my tax to the government when the form comes through the post or the email drops into my inbox saying it's time to do your tax return or your tax form, whatever you call it in America. And I can quite happily do that, say no and sit here and do nothing. I'm going to get a very, very unpleasant letter through the box or a visit at the door from some people who carry guns. Should I pursue that route hard enough? My no is completely immaterial to the system. It doesn't matter how hard I say no. I'm going to have to pay my taxes, or I'm going to have my liberty taken away from me and potentially lose my house, my car, whatever it is. You're adopting that kind of system onto a dog when you're using the command system that the dog must comply. There's no relationship there. I don't love my government. They force me to do stuff. They force me to pay taxes. I understand the need to do so. But you've set that exact dynamic up. I have no choice. Therefore, taking my emotional reaction to you out of the question. I don't like that. I'm not going to form a mutual relationship with you, which is based on trust and respect. I'm in a system where you're the boss and I'm not. And what I say, nobody cares. You'll do what you want to do. And if I try and fight back, you're going to point nasty pointy guns at me and take things off me. That's exactly what you do to a dog when you put it in a situation where it must comply. Now, I'm not saying every situation is never force a dog to comply. If you're in the middle of a damn road and there's a truck coming, you've got to get out of the way. And if you've got a dog on a leash, you've got to go. You've got to move. Tough. These are not absolutes. Absolutely not. The only absolute I will say is none of the scenarios are absolutes. There are always exceptions to every circumstance we can talk about. But ultimately, what I want with my dog and with clients to have with their dog is the same relationship, genuine same relationship you have with a human best friend, where it is genuinely mutual, it is a genuine discussion, and you enjoy doing the things together because there's a choice and you listen to that choice. If an animal is in a relationship with you, be they a human animal or a dog animal, or whatever it is, and their choice is immaterial to your goals and what you are doing, you do not have a relationship based on mutual trust and respect. The animal may still learn to trust your judgment because you go and do things with it, even forcing it to, that don't harm it, don't get it into trouble, etc., etc. So you can have trust in that fashion, but it's not mutual. You've set yourself up, screw it, set yourself up as a tyrant, in effect, because you don't have that two-way conversation with the dog that allows them to say yes or no to something. So you could compare it to an abusive human relationship, husband and wife type dynamic. If one of them doesn't care what the other one says, it's not a good relationship. It's not a healthy dynamic. It's not a healthy relationship, and it's going to end up breaking. And when it breaks, it's going to be messy and it's going to be nasty. And the same can happen with dogs. Dogs can rebel, or they can just decide they don't want to be anywhere near you. I saw this with clients, and I've seen it with Tora when we were doing dog training with her. It's obvious when you know what cues to look for. If your dog is spending all of its free time as far away from you as it possibly can in your property, there's an issue there. If your dog spends all of its free time when it's not under any kind of activity or command right next to you, mine's here, he's just down here, you've got a good thing going. Right? All of those kind of little cues matter. So in terms of the technicalities behind that, in behavioral terms, it is almost a pack mentality you're leaning on. You don't want to be a peer to your dog, but at the same time, you don't want to be a tyrant. And the more you lean on, you must comply, you must do what I say, you must follow the abnormal behavior patterns I'm trying to set you through the reward and punishment of either the tools or the food or whatever it is, toys you're using, the less you're setting up a conversation between you and an animal, which is a true bond. It's the master pupil dynamic, I suppose. Maybe that's not too bad of a dynamic to have, but what you don't want is the dog to get to a point that says, oh yeah, I'm not on a leash anymore. Oh, I don't like you. See ya, I'm off. Gone. What you want is the dog to be off leash right next to you and be like, what are we doing? I like being here. I don't actually care if you don't even move. But that's what I try to get to. That's the goal. Behaviorally, you can't set that up when a dog doesn't have a choice to say no. It doesn't work in the brain that way, unfortunately. Hopefully that wasn't too long an explanation for you.
No, this is very helpful because I think that there's a big misconception around pack mentality in canines. And I was over here trying to search YouTube for an old Ivan Balabanov podcast that I saw where he interviewed, and I couldn't find his name here on the fly, but it's a very interesting conversation, like 3.5 hours with the researcher who back in the 70s coined the term alpha male, right?
Oh, okay.
When he was studying wolves early on, he was under the impression that there was a pack leader who controlled the behavior of all the other dogs and led the pack through punishment and through physical intimidation, controlling access to food, controlling access to mates, all this kind of stuff. And in this podcast episode, this researcher, he's like,
David Meck, is that right? David Meck?
It may be. I'd have to look for sure, but I'll get this right and make sure it's noted in the podcast notes here.
Yep.
Is it David Meck?
I believe so. His 1970 book was The Wolf, Ecology and Behaviour of an Endangered Species, and that is where he coined the term alpha male.
Yeah, this is the guy. This is it.
Yeah.
I will link the podcast. It's extremely interesting because this idea that the dominant pack leader, the alpha male, controls the pack through force and coercion is just completely false. And he openly regrets coming up with the term in the first place. He says, I wish I would have never led the public or the scientists down this road, because the situation, the social dynamic in a pack is very different than that. It is cooperative, and the dogs, yes, there's one that is the leader of the pack, right? Which I guess in a human dog family is, supposed to be the person, but the dog doesn't go around, the alpha male doesn't go around and just bully all the dogs all the time and get the food first and, have sex with all the, like, that's just not how it works. They have a cooperative way, and the communication is very sophisticated, and it's based on respect and a mutual drive for survival, right?
Yes.
End of the story, like they're all trying to survive together, and they're working together to get to that point. It's not all about competition for resources in that context. And so I think that this theory of I can punish and control my dog into submission so that I'm the pack leader, I'm the alpha male of the pack, right? And then that's how the dog is going to trust and respect me. That this ideology is now outdated. That's my belief at this point. What do you think? What do you think?
I concur. I will give a little outline as to why. So I've read two or three books by Rick McIntyre. So he's the gentleman that spent 15 years studying the wolves in Yellowstone from when they were reintroduced. And he's written extensively on wolf behavior. And as far as I'm aware, he's still the man who is credited with having the most hours of observation of wild wolves in history. There is no one who has observed wolf behavior more than him. I've read his books. I highly recommend them. The first one was Reign of Wolf 21. All of them are, I think there's three, or there's a third one coming out. I can't remember. Maybe there's a fourth coming out. But all of his books are extremely informative and really, really revealing on how wolf packs truly work. And that does apply in large part, not 100%, does apply in large part to how dogs behave and how humans really ought to consider their interactions with dogs. And you've described it almost perfectly. There is an alpha pair, we'll call it that word, I don't care for the word, who sit atop a wolf pack. But they are not tyrants. They are absolutely not tyrants. They actually delegate to other members of the pack to have things done. They cooperate in ways that are far more like human societies in effect, really, than we ever really knew until these the researchers, it wasn't Rick, researchers did 15 years of observation of the wolf packs in Yellowstone National Park. And a really good example in these books is Wolf 21's first partner, Wolf 40, female. She was a tyrant. She was nasty. She bullied the other females in her pack for no reason. She attacked them. She pinned them. She stole food off them. She even killed some of their pups when multiple females had pups in one year. She went into their dens and killed their pups. Her own pack turned on her after a couple of years and killed her. She went too rough on one of the other female wolves that was nursing one year. This was about 3 years after introduction to Yellowstone, and the pack ripped her apart. They had enough of her crap. So even in wolf societies, if you push hard enough as a tyrant and you get rough and you do as humans have understood the word alpha for many years, the wolf pack will turn around and execute you. It's not a tolerated position to be or to take. And that was really informative to me reading through that. And then Wolf 21 and his new partner, so I think it was 42, went on to be the longest surviving alpha pair in history of wolves that have ever been observed by humans. And both of them lived. Both of them lived.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. We can have this interruption.
Yeah, someone outside the front. So yeah, when Wolf 42 came along and 21 paired up with her, they lived for approximately 10 years each. They were slightly off that. It was at 9.5, which was twice the average length of wild wolves in Yellowstone. Most lived to around 5. Wolf 21 reached just shy of 10, and Wolf 42, I think, was 9, just in the early 9s. And what Rick McIntyre credited their longevity from is their ability to be true leaders. And he really means this in the human sense. They didn't bully other wolves. They cooperated with them. But at the same time, when discipline was needed or the pack needed to be defended from other packs coming in and trying to attack or steal food or whatever, they would stand up and do the defending, do the fighting as necessary. But one key point of Wolf 21, he never killed another wolf. He was a tough, and he was a big wolf too. He was a big boy. He was a tough, big wolf who never lost a fight. He never killed a rival wolf, never killed another wolf from a pack. He'd just send them on their way packing. And this is part of why it's credited to him for being such a long-lived wolf. He knew when to stay his hand. He knew when to dish out discipline, violence, or to cooperate. And throughout the books, you often come across sections where the alphas, and we'll stick with Wolf 21's pack, have delegated things like hunting to some of the younger wolves, or the alpha females would let some of the younger females choose where to go or which direction to go on patrol. All of this was cooperative. They'd let the younger animals sometimes choose which animal to hunt. Perhaps the older animals wouldn't have chosen that. We don't know, because they just let the other pack members doing it. And they're effectively building a succession plan. I'm sure it's not conscious. They're not consciously doing an arrangement like a human would do in a business where, well, one day I might get promoted or I'm leaving. I need someone to take this seat after me. We should have a succession plan so the business doesn't fold. Wolves do that kind of thing naturally. And that's where dogs have come from. All of that stuff that is inbuilt into the psyche somewhere. And yes, it's been diminished somewhat through domestication. Don't think for a minute I'm saying we've actually just got wolves in our houses. I know we don't. There's a lot of evolution has occurred. However, the base animal under there has come from that exact level of cooperation and that exact level of, yeah, there's a leader. Yeah, absolutely, there's a leader. There's an alpha male and an alpha female, but they are not tyrants. And when they tend to get like that, their own pack kills them. That's a really, really important point to note. And so the packs work on a level of cooperation, call it mutual trust and respect, if you will, that I think is really important for us to note. And then think about, what is a dog? What are dogs for? Humans and dogs co-domesticated each other. Some quite recent, very, very well-respected researchers tell you actually dogs domesticated humans, not the other way around. Humans were nomadic and couldn't settle down and become the agricultural farmers we did in our ancient history without wolves starting to offer us protection, help, whatever you want to call it, or just be around to keep things away from us that we needed keeping away from us. We don't exactly know how it worked, but there's some very, very credible researchers in multiple disciplines who have put their neck out and said, actually, they think wolves domesticated humans, and then it became a symbiotic relationship towards the domestication we have now. So what we actually have in history is true mutual cooperation. We didn't march up to a wolf slap a leash on it or a head halter and go sit. Like, that's not a thing. It just didn't happen that way. Mutual cooperation, mutual trust and respect over multiple millennia slowly brought us into dogs and humans and the relationship we have now. And if you know anything about evolution, you know it doesn't happen quickly. And in the last 200,000 years, human brains haven't evolved one iota. We still have the same amount of wrinkles as we did in our head 200,000 years ago. But we're effectively the same capacity in our heads as we were back then. Dogs change a little bit faster. You can, as you've seen, we've got dog breeds, multiple dog breeds, so their evolution does appear to have changed a bit faster than ours. I don't know how that responds into their brain, but what I'm aware of, wolf brains and dog brains are 99.9% identical still. That's not changed. The physicality of them has changed because they've had to adapt to different environments around the globe where they weren't originally found. But that's an interesting evolution discussion all of itself. But the key point from that is if you try to treat an earlier version of domestication of dog like we treat modern dogs who go through the training regime, do you think they'd stick around and co-evolve with humans to become dogs now? Hell no. They'd run the other way really, really, really fast because there would be nothing they could construe as mutual cooperation. There's nothing for them there. Can you imagine setting some people's dogs free at night to do a job? For example, I use mine. Tibetan Mastiffs traditionally were chained up during the day, set free at night to do their guard work. And they would return to the owners the next day. Why? They're free. They're not under lock and key. They're going to get chained up during the day because the people trusted them to go and do their job, and the dogs were genuinely willing and wanting to come back. If you got heavy-handed with a dog, if you decided it had to do what you said when you said it, there's zero chance that dog comes back the next time you unchain it to go do its job, unless it can't get any kind of food or water from anywhere and it goes to starve. But that relationship just wouldn't develop and wouldn't grow.
Yeah.
So that's
let's detour slightly into what are the negative consequences in the relationship if this isn't respected. So if we take the opposite approach, it'll vary by dog, of course.
Yeah.
And we become the tyrant, right? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned humans being the same as 200,000 years ago. I'm quite convinced that humans are far stupider now, based on dog training advice I see online. Like, and also like the people I talk to, and also just like how helpless a lot of people are with their dogs, right? Like it's quite a sad state of affairs. And so here, my observation is that if you have especially a strong-willed dog, I've had pit bulls. Pit bulls,
yep.
They're my favorite. I love pit bulls. I'm a pit bull guy.
Okay.
And they have an exceptionally high level of willpower that people will frame as stubbornness, right?
Yep.
And so they also they have a very high pain tolerance. So the amount of punishment that you have to apply to force obedience from a pit bull when it doesn't want to do something I was uncomfortable. Like when I was trying to do this with my dog, when I first got my first pit bull, and the prong collar was causing skin irritation. It was causing I don't know if it was damaging trachea, thyroid. There's all kinds of concerns there. We could talk about that some other time, but I didn't feel good about slamming her around and controlling her behavior when she wanted to do something. Let me give a very good example. I felt obligated to take her for a walk. Right, that's what you do with the dogs. I lived in a place where it rains all the time. She didn't like walking in the rain. And I was like, oh, it's cardio time. Come on, Ivy, we're going outside for a walk. And she got to the end of the porch and felt the rain. And she put the brakes on. I put the jacket on and I put the prong collar on. I was like, no, we're going. And I tried dragging her down the road with the prong collar, and it was brakes the entire time. And I finally picked her up, and honestly, if she had bit me at that moment, I would have deserved it, frankly. She never bit me. Ivy hasn't yet to bite me, right? I don't live with her anymore, but Ivy hasn't bitten me. But if she had, like, I wouldn't have been surprised because I was literally dragging her out of the rain, doing something she didn't want to do because I felt like it was something that I wanted to do. And that like this, to me, if this is the chronic state of the relationship, is conflict all the time and forcing the dog to do things that you want to do that it doesn't want to do. It forms resentment. It creates disobedience, agitation, chronic irritability, and lack of trust, which is kind of a vague term. But it creates a dog like with Pipple that's dangerous. Frankly, that's what I would have happened if I had continued doing that with her. Like, what do you?
You've got one other. Sorry.
What do you see as like the drawbacks? And maybe give an example of a different kind of dog, like a dog that's fearful naturally, not a fight dog, but a flight dog.
Yep.
Like you've got a dog that's like scared of stuff, maybe has prior trauma or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I have an example of that. Yes. So you described some really interesting things. And one of my favorite things to do, and I'm not saying dogs are humans, they're not humans, and I don't treat my dogs like humans. However, I find it really useful to say the big word, shall we, anthropomorphize dog stuff into people because it really makes the examples clear. What you just described doing with your pit bull, now put a human in that place and think, how would that relationship go if someone didn't want to go out for a walk in the rain and you decided they're going and you slapped a prong collar on their neck and dragged them out? Do you think they might feel slightly justified at the moment that prong collar comes off and giving you a swift punch to the side of the head? Because I think I'd probably do that to someone if they slapped a prong collar on me and dragged me out in the freezing rain when I didn't want to go. If they take that off, I'm not going to be very happy with them. And I'm liable to express that in some way, shape, or form. And that will be personality dependent, how that comes out. Some people will just try and run away from you and not ever see you again. Some might try and do you significant physical harm. Others may try and do you emotional harm. But when you couch what you do with an animal like that in human terms, I find that confronts people a bit more, makes them think a little bit like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that. So why are you doing it to something which is supposed to have the moniker man's best friend? If you wouldn't generate trust from a human friend by doing that, why on earth would you think a lesser species would trust you when you're forcing it to do something against its will? The answer is the same. It wouldn't, and it doesn't. So I have a good example. Good thing I forgot. Resource guarding. The other one that is very common that comes into my purview from clients and people who are seeking my advice when they've got a dog who is under very, very strict control and management. Resource guarding raises its head. And the reason resource guarding raises its head is because the dog is reaching for something it can have sovereign control of in its own life. Anything it can actually control that is not managed by the person and at the whim of the person, whether they can have it or do it. That is where I see a lot of resource guarding come out. So the dog has literally nothing in its life it's control of. It goes in a crate, it comes out, it does some activities, it has to sit, it has to lie down, whatever it is, the owner tells it to do when. It doesn't get to just stop and sniff or go away from the owner to go do something. When you have a dog that is under a lot, and it is a lot, I do mean this on the extreme end, of control and management, you will see the dog rebel, and often it goes to resource guarding. It won't give up a toy, or it will start guarding food or a place in the house, because the dog needs to feel like it has some sovereign control over itself and its environment. And an animal that doesn't have that is a stressed animal. And then you get yourself into a very, very difficult feedback loop. And that's where bites start happening, because the dog is just saying, leave me alone. I am an intelligent, sentient being. I know how to live. I know what I want, and I know what I need. Stop forcing me to do stuff. And that's when you get the nasties come out. In terms of the other end of the scale,
a good way to put it.
Yeah. On the other end of the scale for flight, yeah, absolutely. So I've had a couple of dogs which are in that space. I've been into clients' houses who have rescued dogs. A couple have had confirmed prior trauma. It's very interesting to see the different reactions to things you present them. So one was just absolutely terrified of me when I went into the house. The owner had gone away, so I was looking after him for a couple of days. I was going to just go around, feed them, walk them a couple of times if that was something the dog was okay with. The dog just ran into the far corner of the backyard and hid. And I stayed for an hour and a half, just sat on the bottom step outside the back door. So I was visible to the dog, but I'm a solid 50 yards away. The dog didn't move for an hour and a half. It was just absolutely terrified. That was a prior abuse case dog that had been rescued. Trying to force that dog to do something, or to come here, or to go up to it and try and put a collar or put the leash on it, that would have been utterly stupid thing to try and do, and I would have deserved to get bit if I did, but I didn't. When it comes to doing things, you've got a dog that does kind of trust you and trying to do things. I've come across a couple of dogs that don't like cars, weird things to not like. I know some dogs don't. There's what was the first one? It was a pit bull. Was it a mix? Doesn't matter. I think it was a pure. I opened the car door and it just freaked out. Ran to the end of the leash, not on a long line, it's only like a 2-meter leash or whatever. So, but it hit the end of the leash and was just like, I am not ever getting in there. Okay, this is a weird reaction, sure. And again, the worst thing I could possibly do at that point is to pick the dog up and shove it in. Because I'm breaking the trust of the animal at that point and saying, your particular fears, your concerns are immaterial to me. I don't care. We're doing this. Shut up. Get in. What I do is just generally I get in myself. If I've got that scenario, I will get in the car myself and the dog will kind of be like, oh, okay. Sometimes that works pretty quick. Sometimes they get in pretty quick. Sometimes it takes a while. Fern, the GSP I've got at the moment as a client, he's halfway there now. So he was really scared of the car when I started working with him as well. I've got videos on my channel of him taking 20 minutes to get in. But it's the same deal. He is genuinely scared of going into a car. Don't know why. His owner said he's had his tail trapped in a door before, but that doesn't usually leave a lifelong scar. So I assume something somewhere has happened to him around a car. And yeah, it's a case of just waiting for him to come round to the concept of getting in. Interestingly, his partner dog, so the dog who lives with Scout, no problem at all, didn't care, she'd get in, but that wasn't enough for him. So he was low enough trust of cars that he wouldn't even get in if another dog had got in, which I found very interesting. He's kind of there now-ish. He'll go to the point if he put his front paws up in the car, but he won't lift himself up. But he doesn't have an issue if I then pull his the harness handle, and just lift him up in. It's fine. He doesn't seem to find that a breach of trust. And in the videos where I was working with him in the early days of this, if I even stepped behind him to give him a bit more space to explore the entry through the door, he was not happy about that. He would start backing out the car, and he would be like, don't go behind me. I know what you're going to do, and I don't want you to do that. So if I want that dog to trust me, and then I want him to be able to lean on me when we've got to the other end of what we're doing, say we come across a scenario that also scares him, as a good example, you're walking across a bridge, and there's rapid running water or stuff going on under the bridge, maybe going over a busy freeway. I think you call freeways in the US, the motorways, like 8-lane superhighway, whatever. I want a dog to trust me. Well, I've just breached his trust trying to get him into a car if he's scared, but I've bundled him in. Now we get to another scenario that's scary. The initial instinctive reaction of this dog is going to be, that guy doesn't care that I'm scared. I don't want to go near this scary thing. Now I'm worried about what he's going to do, and I'm going to start panicking or freaking out. You don't make progress because your earlier behavior with the breach of trust now is compounding on itself, and the dog is now going, don't like him, don't like that, I'm not moving, and the brakes go on. So you do more damage further down the line because it compounds. You think of it as interest. You get a dog to
extremely important point, because this methodology, it sounds like it takes a lot more time. Like
it does, yes.
Yeah, like you're sitting there, you're telling me 90 minutes in the backyard of this dog, like waiting for it to come around, but it's hiding in the corner, and then you move on with your day and can come back, try again. You got a dog that doesn't want to go in the car. You're patient. You wait till it starts having some interest. Maybe encourage it by bringing another canine that will show it that the car's okay, right? Where it's like you could just your average dog trainer, put the dog on a prong collar, muzzle,
Yep.
whatever, just
Yep.
like lift the dog in if they're not afraid of getting bit and just like chuck it in the car or pull it out of the backyard, whatever. And
Yep.
so there is this like upfront investment of time
Yes.
to establish the trust. But once you have the trust, the dogs do anything
Yep.
that the dogs do anything I want them to.
Yeah, everything else falls into line much quicker.
I don't train the dogs to do anything. Like, they do what I ask them to. They follow me around.
Yes.
They listen, and there's no friction.
Yes. Yeah. You've earned the trust, so they'll lean on that. When you think of it like building a railway, massive upfront investment in time and costs doing my method. But once you've got that trust, everything else is easy. It just runs smooth. Once the dog knows that you're listening to it, you understand that when it's scared, it can voice that opinion to you. And when it knows that it's okay that it can do that, and then it can follow you and good things happen, there's no friction further down the line. Everything just runs like a train, just boom, 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 off you go. Whereas if you go down let's solve this quickly with tools, let's get stuff happening, the dog's not getting over the fears. It's just being forced through things. So then you stay in that paradigm for every difficult thing that then happens in the future. Everything is the same fight because the dog doesn't trust your decisions. It's forced into things, so it doesn't get into a position where it can overcome fears. It gets into a position where it's kind of just, I hate this, and it happens to it, and then we go down the path as we described before. So yeah, there is a massive upfront investment in time, but it saves stuff further down the line because then everything's easy. The dog follows you.
I'm over here shaking my head because it feels like we're so obvious, right? But this is like so contrary to how most trainers and how most people treat their dogs. And like, what I'd like to do with the remainder, like we got another maybe 10 minutes or so, is there's, in addition to giving the dog a space to establish trust in moments of fear, what are the other things that we can do to establish trust with the dog? And I'm going to start kicking this off with what I found, which was, what is the dog's favorite thing to do? What is genetically, what is it bred to do? What is its personality? What is its favorite thing to do? And go do that with the dog. And
100% agree.
And so I'll give an example of, I have a rescue dog. He was abused at a boar hunting operation in Texas. I got him, he was emaciated. They'd starved him and they'd have him out, go chase pigs in a pack at night. And when I got him, he was like, had so much trust and love for me, like right out of the gate. I don't know how I turned out to be such a good dog, but there was something missing from our relationship. And whenever I tried to use punishment, he would shut down in fear, especially an e-collar. Okay, like freaked him out. And so I put the e-collar away. I tried conditioning him to it and all this stuff that the trainers tell you to do. And there was no progress with this. So what I started doing was like, I'd take him out at night and let him go. I found a safe place where I could have him off leash and he could go sniff and explore. And during the day, he would wander too far away. I was worried because he wouldn't come back consistently. He'd always come back, but like I would call his name.
On his timeline.
He would come when he was ready, right? So I started taking him out at night. And that naturally brought the proximity closer because he wanted to stay safer, close with me. Granted, I had had the dog for 2 years at this point. And once I started doing that, and he could go out and we did that every night, all the friction would just like disappear. So what I do now with my dogs is I make the time and space to let them do the things they want to do together with me. And then there's also some exercises that I'm introducing, different tools like that maybe we could talk about in the next episode because I'm running out of time now. But like just briefly, finding the dog's natural instincts and finding a way to facilitate that.
Yes, I say it as every dog needs a job. If you have a dog, it was bred for a purpose. If you're not engaging your dog in that purpose, you will have behavioral problems because dogs came from wolves, and that is a very, very high energy animal. And they do things for us. That is what every single dog breed exists for. All right, some of the toys are companion dogs and don't necessarily have a great deal of a job left over, but anything that is anywhere near a working line dog or anything bigger than about 10 pounds has a job. And if you aren't giving that dog an outlet for that, to do that job, or a synthetic simulation of that job, you will have behavioral problems. It's just not a negotiable point. You need to do that to have a dog that has the best chance of being the best dog it can be and the best relationship you can have.
Yeah, and this is what my business is going to offer. Like, this is the vision that I have for my business, is like, this is a place for your dog to do the things they want to do in the context of work, based on the genetics and personality of the dog. And I'm going to have a safe place to facilitate that. I can teach you how to do it. And maybe I provide a lot of support or a little support, but like, that's really what I want to do instead of teaching specific behaviors, because I know when I send the dog home after this kind of session, there's going to be so much less friction, and I don't have to give the client like this list of instructions and all these things they got to do. And like, you got to pick the food, and you got to have the prong collar, and you got to say a special prayer before you get out the door, and you got to leave the, you know what I mean? Like, all these little things, but clients don't do this. Like, every dog trainer I talk to, they're always blaming the client. Right, they're consistently. It's like, I had the dog for board and train for 6 weeks, and it was perfect. And then I sent it home, and they didn't follow the instructions, and now the dog is a wreck again. It's like, well, it sounds like what you do doesn't work.
There's two strands to that, and I'll quickly delve into them. One, you change the environment, you will change the behavior. That's day 2 stuff of Skinner. If you take a dog out of the environment it is struggling with or causing chaos in because it's behaving badly, there's a reason for that behavior. The behavior changes. Of course it changes. We know that. You only have to examine yourself carefully and honestly for 10 seconds. That you change the environment, you change the behavior. I see it all the time. You take a dog away from the owner. This is why I meet new dogs with the owner not present. I don't want the owner there. It's always when problems happen. I get a different behavior. Absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum. Dogs that are trying to eat my face off when I meet them with the owner, get rid of the owner, go away. Leave your dog at home. Give me access to your house. I'll walk in the back gate or I'll walk in the front door. What do I get? I get the real animal. I get the true personality of that dog looking at me. And we are having a negotiation face to face. Who are you? I'm me. I'm coming into your property. I'm not going to do it as I'm talking to you now with a bit of a mood on. I'm coming in calm, but I'm just saying to the dog, I'm me, you're you. Let's find out who that is, who each other are. Can we get somewhere there, get somewhere with this, and get some trust in? You bring the owner back in, I'm going to get mauled. And it always happens like that. And it's the basic Skinnerian premise. If you change the environment, you will change the behavior. Because behavior is entirely predicated on the environment. That is like Skinner 101, or maybe operant conditioning is 101. So the next thing on from operant conditioning is, if you change that environment, you will change the behavior. That is a fundamental law of behavior. Nothing escapes that. Nothing and no one escapes that law. That's why I'm so vehemently and vocally anti-board and train, because an owner is the person who needs to have the relationship with their dog that gets the trust and the bond and everything into the right place so they don't have behavioral problems. And that's where my method can get is the most awkward. That's where my method is the most awkward, because I can take a dog and I can get them to be great. And I have that quite a lot with clients. So I go back to a client and say, here, look, here's the video of me with your dog doing stuff you can't do with your dog. It's fixed. It's not fixed because the dog was never broken. The dog's perfectly normal and perfectly fine. What's actually broken is the relationship between the owner and the dog. So when you put the dog back in their hands, it's a totally different environment. Think of the owner as an environment. So now the dog's in an environment it doesn't trust. So the old behavior can start returning. So really what you need, and I'm a person and I can communicate verbally with people, but it's still a really hard thing to say to clients is, there's nothing wrong with your dog. You've just seen the video evidence of me doing things with your dog that you can't do with your dog. We need to do a little bit more self-reflection with you as to why this might be happening when it's you holding the leash, or why you're worried about this scenario. You can't do this because I can do it with your dog. I'm not special. I'm just a bloke. The only thing I have, which you don't, is I don't have a prehistory with your animal. All I've got is the time I've walked into your backyard and clipped a leash on your dog when they've let me. Sometimes that's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 5 hours. Brody was the worst, my long-term pit bull. It was about 6 months with that guy. We used to go around on a Friday afternoon, sit in his garden for an hour. It was about 6 months before I could get a leash on him. That's how low trust and scared he was. And I genuinely mean scared. He was terrified. But once that trust came, stuff moved fast. Never met a dog like it. Never met such a low trust animal. Even ones that have had serious violent pasts, but 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm able to go up to them and put a leash on. And I don't go up to them. I let them come to me. I show them the leash and they'll say yes or no. Even Zara, the Great Dane, was terrified of me the first couple of times I went in her house. It's like 10 minutes and I've got a leash on her. She wants to go walking with me. Rhodey was months. But anyway, different dog. But yeah, my point is it's environment and it's the person. You need to work with the client. So I understand why trainers blame clients. I totally get that, actually. It might seem weird coming from me to say that. But generally, the problem is people have lost the ability to understand their dog. That's why we've got behavioral problems. The dog doesn't have a job. The owner is scared of their dog or scared of the consequences of something their dog might do. That fear breeds a broken relationship, because if the human doesn't trust the dog doesn't trust the human. What's the dog going to do when it's in an environment it doesn't trust the thing that's got a leash around its neck? It's going to get a bit sketchy, shall we say. They're going to be ready to go into fight or flight very, very quickly, and that's where the bad stuff happens. So working on the owner is actually more important than working on the dog. That's the hardest thing we have to do in this industry, because the dog genuinely, in 99.9% of cases, the dog's not broken. There's nothing wrong with it. They are behaving, that's not a word, I apologize. They are behaving as any animal in their situation should in that environment, because it's instinctive. They're trying to rely on a bond with a person that's broken, so that's not something they can put trust in. They can't leave them. So they're left to do things in their own way with their own smarts, and their own smarts are telling them this is potentially dangerous, or I don't trust this situation, so I want it to go away. Bang, out comes your reactivity. Bang, out comes your aggression, which is why, rewinding right back to the start, I'm so big on that relationship. It has to be a fundamentally trust-based relationship for your dog to be able to cope and do things in any scenario that you can take it. And that's why giving the dog to someone else actually in some cases works really well, because the person goes, my dog can succeed in that scenario. There they are in a dog park off leash. My word, I didn't think my dog could do that. And then that relief flooding into the human breeds trust in their dog, and they go, you're actually great, you're fixed. Nah, we just fixed the human. It's the reward center in the human that's just gone, everything's okay. And so then they trust their dog, and the dog notices that instantaneously, the moment the human gives that trust to their dog, and then everything settles down. Wow, you fixed my dog. Your dog wasn't broken. Sorry. But that's not really a point you can sell people. I can't advertise for, I'm a human trainer for non-broken dogs.
So there were two ideas. You came at this with two ideas. There was change the environment, and what was the other thing?
Change the environment to change the behavior. If you do that, you will see a different behavior from the dog. And the other one is you have to get people educated on what it means to have a relationship with their dog. Because if the trust is not there between the dog and the human, by the way around first, the human and the dog doesn't trust them, and you can't win. You will never have a fixed dog.
And then it's always on defense. It's always in defense. And it's always protecting.
Exactly. Yes. It's
like
always in defense.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. This is the term I learned when I worked in crypto.
Yep.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It wrecks the market, okay?
Yes.
But it also
wrecks the relationship with the dog.
It also wrecks the dogs.
Yes.
And when I want to close out the episode very briefly, like telling the story of Macho, my Malinois.
Go for it.
He's coming up on 3 years old. I've had him for 4 months. And he's a Malinois German Shepherd mix. Unfortunately, neutered at 7 months old. He was going to be euthanized at a shelter, and he was brought into a rescue. And I won't get into kind of training that they did at the rescue, because I don't know too much about it. But when I started working with him, I started seeing him a couple days a week for about 6 months, and he became very attached to me. But he always had this there's this sense of fear. Whenever I would give him instructions, it's like, am I in trouble, or are you just telling me to do something? And then there'd be some hesitation, and then I would give reward when he would give me the desired behavior, like real basic stuff like recalling or jumping up on a box or walking on a leash. But this persistent fear, like it would never go away. And I brought him home. couldn't take it anymore. Like this was an accident. I did not plan to adopt a Malinois and bring him into a one-bedroom apartment while I'm trying to launch my freaking business. Okay, I already have a working dog. I have a pit bull. So Macho's here now, and this constant fear. Anytime I'd give him instructions, anytime I'd give him commands, it's like he winces. He would wince, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this has to go away. There's no way that I can do anything with him. Every trainer I talk to, it's like, put him in command, pressure and release, make him face the fear. And every time I did these kinds of things, some of the pressure and release I think was helpful. We could talk about that later, but like this chronic fear, anytime I'd give him commands, I tell him what to do, just would not go away. It was getting worse. And then when I would leave the apartment, leave him alone, the separation anxiety was intense. It was very, very bad. And so this was creating a cycle of stress for both of us. And so finally I was like, I'm going to just not tell him to do anything. I'm not telling him to do anything. We're just going to go out and do what he wants to do. And I'm going to go do Malinois things, digging holes, chasing squirrels, sniffing for deer, running around. And, we do recall training. And when we're out in the forest, I do use an e-collar. We can talk about that some other time, in case because he is overwhelmed and going to chase something that's dangerous into a road or whatever. But like, by the time I introduced the e-collar and having that punishment, there was no fear from it. It didn't cause fear in him anymore because I had established the trust and the respect by letting him do what he wanted to do. And like his attentiveness to me was always very high. Like he was glued to me, like trying to crawl into my skin, right? Like bad attachment, like uncertainty, like, is everything okay? Am I okay? Are you happy with me right now? Like, so
seeking out your approval.
Always. And I was like, this has to stop. He needs to be an independent dog. He needs to think for himself. He needs to be confident when he faces like not even new situations, just like when he's in my freaking apartment all the time, or when we're out on hikes. Like he needs to be confident. And I would put him in situations where I'd see that confident. Was always out in nature, or meeting new people, meeting new dogs too. He was very confident in doing that. He liked that. So we just did a lot of that. And I didn't teach him how to do anything. I didn't teach him how to do anything. And this like very quickly, I guess I only had him for 4 months. To me, this is very quick, the amount of change that I've seen, because now it's totally different. He's not constantly begging for affection. When I tell him he has to stop doing something, he stops and he's not scared. He's like, why? And he's like, okay, like, what are we doing next? Like, what are we doing next, Dad? And the dynamic is totally different. And I'm confident that if I had put him in command and dragged him around a prong collar and like zapped him with the e-collar to get him to, it would have just made the problem worse. So, I just can't imagine. And like, it's just everybody that I spoke to with training, including people that I respect a lot, who have very good, well-behaved dogs of their own, like was just like, you got a working dog. He's a military tactical commando. He's supposed to be a cop dog. Like, just put him in command, tell him what to do all the time, give him a special place in the house, blah, 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 blah. Take away the food, all like this whole thing. And I'm confident that this would have backfired because I want the dog to be independent and confident without a lot of my guidance. And when I provide guidance, I want him to be receptive to it. And that's what I have. Like Macho is now like he's like man's best friend, just like my other dog, Tom. And that's how I did it, was just like, giving him a chance to be who he wanted to be and build confidence on his own.
And to see who you were.
That was it.
And to see who you were. You took the pressure of punishment away from him and showed him the real you. Mm-hmm. That is vital. Absolutely vital. No one likes someone who's potentially dishing out punishment all the time. The moment you stop doing that, because to him commands were associated with some form of punishment, like you coming. You stopped doing that and showed him the real personality, the real Sheldon underneath there, who wanted to bond with the dog. The dog saw you and went, yes, that guy. I want that guy. I don't want the guy that tells me to do stuff. I'm a smart dog. I can figure this out by myself if you just give me a chance.
And I have to be that guy. I have to be that guy because I was not perfect. Okay, there are plenty of times where I blew up on Macho. He did something. Yeah. I was frustrated. I was tired. It's really in the morning. I have my coffee. He's got to go outside, and like there are plenty of times where I yelled at him, slapped him in the face, like all kinds of things. Like I've done it. Okay, and like
we're not perfect.
But dogs, they're not like people. They don't ruminate on this kind of stuff. They move on and they react to who you are in the present moment. Yep. And so my responsibility is to like approach all situations from like a clear and calm state of mind and be that for Macho. And then when like he has to listen to me because there's a safety concern, like today he met some kids, right? He hasn't met very many kids. And like he started getting excited and like doing the chop the mountain, chop. And I was like, Macho, no, come back. Right. I called him back and he came right back. And then he laid down and he wanted pets from me. And I was like, perfect. We'll try again another time. Right. But like, I didn't go over there and slap him. And like, if I had been like scared or angry or I was having a bad day, like things would have been different. He probably would have been one of the kids.
He'd have fed off that and it would have caused the vicious circle to escalate.
Yeah. Well, Pete, thank you so much. We have a lot to talk about. We'll have future episodes.
Dude.
And cheers to episode 1.
Yeah, thank you. Good fun. Thank you, Sheldon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.